UAG Bio Nutrients transforms organic waste into biological clean power and biological fertilizer. And as you've just mentioned, our process is based on technology and support of nature. And as we put it, our vision is to feed the world from waste to plate, healthily, profitably and sustainably.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me for another executive interview. Today joining us for a very insightful chat is John Barraclough, the co-founder and executive chair at UAG Bio Nutrients. UAG is pioneering a revolutionary approach to agriculture and waste management, combining nature's principles with cutting-edge technology to address pressing environmental challenges. John, great to have you here.
Thank you, Rhythm.
Now, John, could you start by providing us with a brief overview of UAG and your company's mission?
Okay. UAG Bio Nutrients transforms organic waste into biological clean power and biological fertilizer. And as you've just mentioned, our process is based on technology and support of nature. And as we put it, our vision is to feed the world from waste to plate, healthily, profitably and sustainably. And for farmers to transition to sustainable agriculture, we must ensure that the transition is both sustainable and profitable. In broadacre farming, it can be a 5 to 7 year change.
Absolutely. Now that sounds truly transformative. Now, can you elaborate on the scalability of your integrated anaerobic digestion and vermiculture system, and how does the scalability actually impact potential returns for investors, especially if we are considering the growing demand for sustainable agricultural practices?
Okay. We have designed our process to be modular and scalable. It operates in 4 stages. We take waste in, organic waste, and we prepare it quite differently. Then we put it into redesigned anaerobic digestion in 3 tanks in 3 stages, and that optimizes methane generation. And the last stage is the feedstock for the vermiculture, for the worm farming. We're building green infrastructure. This is big, chunky stuff. And the last stage is fertilizer preparation. So the power comes off the anaerobic digestion stage, and our byproduct there is food-grade carbon dioxide when we scrub the methane. And all of this is patented now, and the patent's rolling out globally. So what we've designed is a scalable solution with inbuilt redundancy at every stage. And the more organic waste, the more clean energy and fertilizer, the more returns for investors. But we just add modules. As I like to describe it, it's large-scale Lego blocks. The more waste, the more Lego blocks. As we scale, at our full size, the efficiencies are pretty strong. And the internal rate of return for investors is not actually based in our forecasts on current competitor pricing for organic fertilizers. It's based on farmers' budget per hectare to help that sustainability meet profitability. We've got to make this change. You know, the UN declared 2015 the year of the soil, because if we don't get this right, a lot of the world's soils will be non-productive by 2060. None of us want that.
That's truly fascinating, John. Now, with increasing regulatory pressure to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and transition towards sustainable practices, can you tell us how does UAG position itself to capitalize on emerging opportunities in the carbon offset markets?
Very carefully. We have our first carbon credits registered with the Australian Clean Energy Regulator, and that is a very strong, rigorous process, and it needs to be. We have a lot more to register over the next year. On the first smaller pilot plant, which is a $20 million pilot. We capture at just under 11,000 tonnes of carbon, and so far we have registered carbon credits for 4,000 tonnes. So we are now investigating how do we use the registered carbon credits post-audit to finance projects in the future, and that's becoming more and more available as big polluters under things like the Australian Safeguard Mechanism have to defend their position or pay a penalty. So that is helping. We're happy to work with anyone who has to transition. And that is our mining companies, it's our food processing, it's our agricultural processing, as we all need to get cleaner in what we do over time. And scope 1, 2 and 3 carbon emissions are becoming a reality in about 18 months. So farmers need to address it, and we're working on ways to improve the carbon in our fertilizer, to improve carbon credits for using it in farming. The other advantage we have over traditional plantation carbon credits and projects like that, ours is a manufacturing process. We can measure and control at every point what we produce. So we are being very careful. The term greenwashing comes up a lot and we avoid it.
Right. Amazing. Thanks for explaining that, John. Now, intellectual property often serves as a significant barrier to entry in an industry. So could you provide more insight into your patents and proprietary manufacturing processes and how they actually contribute in maintaining a competitive advantage for investors?
Yeah, our first patent has passed international examination and is rolling out country by country. We're targeting 51 large-scale ag-producing companies. Chile registration came through this morning. But there are also some trade secrets in our process. For example, how we make the digestate, the output from anaerobic digestion, healthy for worms. My favourite academic paper from about 16 years ago says you can't do what we do. We can, and we've proven it independently. But we will also set up manufacturing of certain key parts that have embedded trade secrets in how it operates and how it's managed. We've built our first manufacturing hub on the first project. It came in 21 containers, came out bolted together. We can put it back in and transport it to the next site because the anaerobic digestion tanks are too big to transport cost effectively. So we have the patents and then we have manufacturing, and I was in discussions this morning as to where we'll locate that, and the Hunter Valley is looking pretty good at the moment with all their clean energy hub initiatives. That's for Australia and for export. But we are in the process of lodging more patents from our research work from the scientists and engineers. We've got 2 more going in the next month.
Amazing, very exciting indeed. Now, the biofertilizer market has witnessed substantial growth, which is driven by a shift towards eco-friendly agriculture. So how does UAG differentiate itself within this market, and what strategies are in place to capture a significant market share?
We are fairly careful where we build, where there is high demand, and we segment the highest demand, protected cropping, horticulture, and broadacre is lower use per hectare, but far more hectares. For example, when we build on a beef feedlot, they're one of the major grain purchasers in the country. So we'll work back to their suppliers to support them in what they've got to do. But our biofertilizer it's the bulk soil conditioner to allow us to rebuild soils. It's manufactured, it's not composted. And we understand from independent analysis of our biological fertilizer, that we have advantages in terms of the broad biological base in that fertilizer. It's broader than composted competitors. And countries are imposing restrictions on inorganic or synthetic fertilizers, as you're mentioning. But as we keep saying, we are in a major transition. China has led the way on banning inorganic fertilizer. Canada has recently imposed limits, and so has Europe. And it's a decline. But we've got to make it work. I keep saying it, profitably for the farmers. And as the bulk supplier, we think we can meet their budget per hectare. But we segment where we start. We've already got offtakes from our first plant, and we haven't finished building it yet.
Partnerships and collaborations can often enhance a company's competitive edge. So can you elaborate on your existing and potential future partnerships, especially those with universities and government bodies, and how they actually contribute to the company's success?
Yeah, well, obviously the basic partnership was between me and my co-founder, Peter Fusarelli. Peter wakes up and innovates. And then we had one of Australia's first regenerative farmers, Brett Warren, come in as a co-director. That's been the basic partnership for building the business. It is growing rapidly. We have a number of great partnerships with everyone from our accountants to our lawyers and to our first project funders and our first project partner. And that project partner's on a beef feedlot in the Riverina. Ron had, from Ramps Ridge Group, had the foresight to say, we've got to do this, come and do it. I'd tried 5 other project starts before we got that one going. But we also have a really good engineering and science team working with Peter and a site project team in place doing the work now. But we are starting to form other partnerships. Southern Cross Uni, as I mentioned before, at their environmental analysis lab, do our testing, and we are negotiating a joint venture with them to do more research. We are engaging with what our know-how model means with a new partnership and with other partners to help us reach where we've got to go here and overseas. Brett, Peter and I cannot do it all ourselves. We are raising more capital to bring in an executive level team who can help drive growth to meet demand. But the partnerships are huge. We've had great support at federal and state government and some councils. That will have to continue to grow, and it's all got to be managed and done properly and appropriately. But partnerships are the key to us rolling this forward.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very true indeed, John. Now, as we conclude our interview, John, could you outline the financial outlook for UAG? So including revenue projections, project margins, and potential exit strategy for investors. Like, how does the company plan to deliver attractive returns to its investors in the long term?
Great question. We at the moment are only forecasting the first 5 projects in Australia, and we're working on them. And we're engaged with partners to do that. We are building green infrastructure. It's big, chunky stuff with multiple sources of income on every project. If we're treating sewerage or food and garden waste from councils, we get paid to take the waste. I've just found out in Holland, if we go there, we'll be paid to take the cattle waste from the feedlots, and the carbon credits are worth twice as much. We earn from the energy, we earn from the food grade CO2, we have carbon credits and liquid and solid fertilizer. But we have discounted, as I keep saying, to help the transition. Our internal rates of return are very healthy on the projects with the discounts. But as I just said, some people are starting to be driven by different pressures on their returns. and everyone is in this transition. So our forecast returns are very healthy for investors, and that's quite unusual in this space at the moment. We also continuously produce power. It doesn't stop. So we underpin wind and solar for peak and overnight loads and all that stuff. We are not yet forecasting the sale of our know-how or intrinsic value. You know, I've been approached in the last month for territory rights in 5 major countries by one group. We've agreed to have it independently valued, and that's a new partnership we're forming at the moment to figure out how to do it. It's interesting when you're at the front of a curve with a new innovation. So, you know, we are very sure of sustainable returns. Our key thing is security of supply of organic waste. And we contract that for 20 years. We contract the right for the land for that period. But we are getting approaches from everywhere now. So it's an interesting time, but the economic internal rate of return is going to be well above 20%.
Very interesting, John, indeed. Now, thank you so much as we conclude this interview today for sharing your insights on UAG and the work that you and your team are doing. It's truly wonderful to hear everything that goes on in the back end, all the hard work with the company. For anyone watching this interview, if you want to get in touch with the team at UAG, please see the details at the side of your screen or in the description of this video. And I will see you all in my next interview. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much.